Okay, so I can see that things have slowed down a little bit. So I'm going to start off today. So hi, everybody, and welcome to the final day of the 2024 CRIG seminar, where this year we've been celebrating Information Literacy's 50th birthday. My name is Ramona Naika, and I'm a Scholarly Services Librarian at Deakin University and the chair of the CRIG Seminar Committee. It's been a really wonderful few days and a bit of an exciting wrap up today. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands across Australia where we live, learn and work. We celebrate the inherent strengths of Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander and other First Nations peoples and communities, and we recognise their continuing connection to land, water, sky and culture. We pay our respects to the elders past and present, and I'd like to extend those respects to any First Nations people with us today. I'm joining you from Wurundjeri country, and I invite you to share which country you're on today in the chat. A little quick note on housekeeping. If you have any technical issues, the Caval team will be able to help you through the chat, so just pop a little chat message in there. You can also use the chat to engage with today's presentations and connect with other people. The chat's been great the last few days, so yeah, let's keep that going and connect with each other. Don't forget to use the hashtags CRIG 2024 and InfoLit50 if you're tagging us on social media, and we've been using LinkedIn. Just a quick note to say thank you to those who were able to make it to last night's little gathering. It was really lovely to get to chat more about the previous seminar sessions and connect in person during an otherwise online seminar. Online is more convenient, but those in-person connections are so important as well. So today's session will begin with a presentation from Professor Bodil Rasmussen and Michelle Bendel, followed by a Q&A. And after a short break, we'll move into the exciting lightning talks, and then, of course, wrap up by sharing the cake competition entries with everyone to vote on their favourite. And then, of course, announcing the cake competition winner. So we've had some really creative entries, so please stay tuned for that. Before I formally introduce our first session, I would just personally like to thank everyone on the CRIG Seminar Committee for all of their really hard work. You've been such a pleasure to work with, and I'm so incredibly grateful to have been given this opportunity. I also want to note that this, for the audience, that this has been a Gen AI free series, and that's something that we actively decided on, as it's probably the last time we're going to get away with that. So I do hope that you've enjoyed a little bit of break from AI as well. So now I am delighted to properly introduce our first speakers, Professor Bodil Rasmussen from the School of Nursing and Midwifery in Deakin, and Michelle Bendel, Scholarly Services Librarian, also from Deakin University. So Bodil will be talking to us about the guided self-determination method, and this is a method that of communication originally developed for those with ongoing health issues, and then also applied for supporting students through their transition into university. Michelle will then talk to us about how she has applied this method within her work as a librarian. And I first heard about the guided self-determination method from Bodil and her colleague Judy a few months ago when Michelle introduced me to them. And I found it so interesting and really helpful in my own work. So I'm really pleased that Bodil and Michelle are here to share this with you today. You can find out more details about all of today's speakers as well on the event page, which will be linked to in the chat. If you've got any questions during this presentation, please submit them through the Zoom Q&A function, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address as many as possible afterwards. So please join me in welcoming Professor Bodil Rasmussen and Michelle Bendel. Thank you both so much, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Mona. It's wonderful to be here, and I am delighted to have an opportunity to talk about the guided self-determination together with Michelle Bendel. We have worked together for a while on this, and we are presenting today together. Yes, the guided self-determination is a method that or what I have worked with. I always acknowledge the designer of the methods. It's Danish people, so here is my accent is Danish, and she is a professor in translation empowerment at Copenhagen University and has worked on this. This is her PhD from 25 years ago, and I have worked with her in the last 15 years and looking at people who have lost motivation, and it was built in diabetes, but it has been applied to a lot of different conditions, such as as people who have gone through divorce, people who have lived with ongoing chronic condition, cancer, obesity, and I think there's 10 of them. But we have also tried here to work on students who are entering university. And it came about that we were really concerned, or university are concerned about the dropouts of people, and often, obviously, in the terms of the entry to university. So we thought that we would try to support the students into what we are calling a shared decision-making process. So it's about empowering people to get people or students to reflect on the decision they have made in terms of their students' choices of courses. So it's developing skills that will help them to make decisions, really. That's what guided self-determination is about. And the methods comprises of a set of processes. So first of all, we talk about how we want to work together with students. So there is a set of group of mentors who are trained in the guided self-determination methods, and they work together with students. And this is sort of the logistic on how they're going to meet, when they're going to meet, and they are working around some semi-structured reflections worksheet. So the methods, the essential of the methods is some worksheets that triggers reflections, and I will show some examples on that. And as I said, the mentors are trained in advanced communication skills, which I will run through too. So the guided self-determination as a glance is that it's based on self-determination theory. So the self-determination theory is about motivation, really. It's about trying to find the issues that might be affecting people's motivation to study in this case. And the way we offer some practical tools to address those 4 or 3 sets. So autonomy is around the self-choice and self-willingness. To be self-determined, people need to make their choices on their own, within their world. They need to have the relatedness. They need to have a purpose and a connection before their choices. And they also need some competencies. They also need to have some knowledge and some skills to manage their decisions and their, I guess, their life in general. Because often it's actually not about the studies, it's often other issues that is a barrier for students, such as financial circumstances, partners, or home-based issues. So in terms of guided self-determination, we call it GSD in short. They are training the professionals in the communication skills, and this is to support the autonomy and the relatedness, and obviously to build some competencies to the mentor. We also offer a series of structured questions, and this relates to the purpose of the whole exercise, and again, to build the competencies. And the last bit is to allow them to make. That's what is actually very important in guided self-determination, that we allow the participants to make their own decisions on their term. So for us, it's a shift in the way we often might interact with students, is that we're not the expert. So it's about thinking that the students are the expert in their life and their difficulties, but we are supporting them to make decisions on their terms. So self-determination is based around the motivation, and we have, for instance, in sort of a continuity, I guess, of motivation, where amotivation is the lowest part of the continuum, where there's absolutely no interest or just maybe some significant barriers to motivation. Then we have the extrinsic motivation, where we're doing something that is maybe put on us by other people or our social network or our studies and deadlines we need to meet, and extrinsic triggers that motivation. So we are maybe not in fulfillment of enjoyment for doing the task, but we have deadlines to meet, we have certain pressures on us to do what we might not quite enjoy, in contrast to the intrinsic motivation, which is doing something that is inherently enjoyment and is in particular interest for that individuals. So you're probably familiar with these things, but it's just to refresh the ideas and to link it to our self-determination. So extrinsic motivation, as I said, is something that we are pressured from outside. So there can be rewards, punishment, and compliance. Is something you need to do. As I said, can also be some ego drivers. There could be something in yourself that say, I should do, I ought to do. And trying to not feel too guilty, but the pressure from outside can be triggering guilt feelings. So the internal importance is what you, the person we are dealing with, the students, their personal values, their personal goals. That's what we are trying to work towards by using some reflection sheets. And one of the crucial part of GSD, guided self-determination, is about getting the student to think about what the issues are really in causing the trouble. And we ask them to jot down their, or write down their thoughts and what sort of observation, when is it worse and when is it less pertinent, the problems. And we also ask them to, oh, I need to go back. We also ask them to identify their goals and their intention, and then what action they would take. So it all relates to the self-determination, it's built on that. And the other things we ask them is to reflect on some of the unfinished sentence. So we ask them, no, sorry, this is about the agreement we start with. We start to find out that we set out the way to work together, as I already mentioned. And we also make it clear that we might not always agree on what the solution is, but it is about what the students have decided to work towards. The unfinished sentence is a very important part of guided self-determination. It is the worksheet that probably made the student feel most reflective in. So we asked them to fill out some unfinished sentence. So say, I want a happy day in your life was, I would like to learn more about. So they identify issues in the world they are in at the moment. And this one is a third worksheet we're going through. We ask the students on how much time and energy their current situation takes up. So the issues they have identified, how much time do they take up in the studies now? And we ask them to, and how much would they like that to take? And then we discuss the differences. So that we ask them to shade out how much of this, or they can write percentage of it. So it can look like this. So the red stripes indicate the issue. So the issue in this case takes up a lot more time than they want. So what they really would like is to have it to look like this, so that the issue is, in this case, totally disappeared. And in this case, there's, in a way, my current issue takes up the space in form of feeling guilty, because I don't look after my study in the way it's expected. Instead, I don't deal with the underlying issues here. So this is a student who are not performing well in terms of meeting the deadlines, and it feeling guilty. And that is about having a conversation why they have ended up in that situation. And that's what I'm saying. It often is some social or psychological issues that might come up. And here they are. This is the website. We actually have a website that is interactive, where the student can go in and they can follow the conversations. And they can go in 24 hours, 7 days a week, of course. And that's quite important, that they can work on their own as well as with the mentor. And yes, so this is again that main worksheet we are working towards to identify and sometimes helping to prioritize issues, because often there's more than one issue, but we are actually helping them to prioritize those. As I was saying, the mentors are attending a workshop where they are taught some communication skills. And these ones might not all be new for you, but we're using mirroring and active listening and value clarification. Value clarification is specific for guided self-determination. But mirroring is about building rapport. It's about aiming to feel the sameness and to thinking like in the mirror by maybe mirroring their nonverbal movement. It's about smiling and nodding, and not to interpret anything, but to just be there and just listening and nodding and being engaged. Active listening, they overlap a little bit, but active listening is more about listening to the intent and understand, and not with the intent to reply. And this is what sometimes is very difficult for both diabetes educator who's going through guided infant termination and mentors. It's about not coming forward with a reply, or certainly not solution, but listen and responding in a way that will making inquiries, I will say, where you're saying, it sounds like if, or I see you being upset. So you are just stating the fact you are observing, and then get the person, the student, to talk more. The value clarification response is about really to stimulate the assessment process. So remember, when I started out, I said that guided self-determination is about designing a solution. So it's about getting the person to really think about what their attitude and interest are and how we can assess them. And often, this sounds quite complicated, but often it actually only takes a second or two. And often it's about asking about different ways of looking at the situation. So, for instance, a student was not particularly happy with their engineering course. And as we spoke about, what was it that made them choose to go into engineering? Well, it was because they followed a friend, or there were pressure from the family. There were lots of things around that decision where actually the student would have liked to do art. So it's about finding that by really looking at why the decisions were made as it was, and finding out what do they really want, and get them to reflect on that. And yeah, and it's about also to act about their own decision and make them responsible. So that's a little bit confronting sometimes to actually say, look, I understand you believe it, but what do you do in practical terms? So it's about getting them to think about what they actually, their behavior or their way they have made that decisions, and ask them also how far you want to go, how are you bearing in your future plans. So getting them to think a little bit about what the consequences are for their plans, for their future. And sometimes you have a conversation around how you can make changes too. So if you are making changes, how would that look like? So it's about, I guess, in partnership with the students to find the solution that fit them on their terms. So just to sum up, the communication skills is mirroring, so it's about stating what is observed, active listening, so it's listening rather than coming forward with a reply, expressing what you see and ask if that interpretation is correct. And value clarification is about making choices. It's about making getting the individual student to make a choice, and repeat it, because as I said, there might be more issues than one, so you might have several issues to work up, but you do have one at a time. So the essential of the DSD methods is 3 to 4 conversations with them. The exercise sheets which I have shown, and it's about identifying what's unique for that particular student, and it's about gaining that the student gain the insights in their life in a way that is aligned with their values and where they really want to be, and have an interaction that support that autonomy. So it's about not being the expert and making decisions for the students, but that they do that themselves, and you help them to make that decision and then make them responsible for it. But during that process of the reflection, we also will discover that the students have resources to manage their choice. So it's not that we're leaving them on their own. They are in a way making decisions that they are manageable for them, and they are building up. They get this aha experience often, where they can see that they made the choice, and now there might be other ways to get around their studies or their life in general. So I think that's probably, yeah, I will just highlight there is a website for DSD, and that is in health, but we also have the student information there. So there is a guide self-determination website where you can see what we are doing in the different both in research and education, and you can see resources available. You can see the reflection sheets, and you can get more in-depth knowledge about the actually methods and the theories behind it. So how am I going for time, Ramona?
We've still got some time. Yeah, we're going well. So we've got Michelle's up next.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll stop sharing, and sorry about that.
And no worries at all. We're doing absolutely.
Were we going to do an activity, a breakout room? Or shall we just move on?
So you've got about 15 minutes, 16, 17 minutes, so we'll let you decide.
Okay. Bodil, would you like me to start on then?
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
you start on, and then maybe we can do, if we have time allow, we will do a little exercise, I think.
Yeah, sure. All right. Okay. Now let me bring up my speaker note. Good on you. So I will pop that out of the way. Okay. Sorry, I jumped too far, didn't I? So what I'm going to do is link through what I learned from participating in Bodil's pilot program at Deakin University, working with guided self-determination for university students at Deakin. And in my presentation, I'm going to link that through to the practical communication skills that I've developed and how I work those skills with any library consultations that I have with students. Following on from Bodil's presentation, there was a lot of really good information there, particularly the communication skills. But I participated, as I said, in the pilot program as a facilitator or a mentor. I facilitated one student through the program in 2022, and that student was really struggling with adapting to learning in a tertiary environment. It was so different to secondary school learnings. A common experience across first year students can simply be disappointed hopes. Now, I would like to think that Deakin University is always the first preference for domestic school leavers, but sometimes it isn't, and those students really need to take time to find their feet in the early weeks of their first trimester or semester and work out what it is, why they're at university, and what do they want to achieve with the degree that they've chosen to enrol in. Also, learning can be different journeys for each individual student. We, as librarians, are here to help guide and support them, but essentially they are to choose their own research and learning paths. And that's that last bit that Bodil was talking about. Getting students to have ownership over what they're going to do. We'll provide resources to them that they can turn back to at any time. Now, 2 years later, this student who was virtually on the way of giving up, but going through the program really helped this student. The student agreed to share their reflections with me for the purposes of our presentation today. Have a read of that. What I'd like to draw out is that middle sentence where the student wrote, I often think about how overwhelming it was to jump straight into university right out of high school with the expectation of knowing exactly why I was there and what my goals should be. This student stuck to the degree that they enrolled in and are now very pleased with the future career that they're going to pursue. I think, as well as what Bodil spoke about just now, this also reflects what Dr. Alison Head discussed on the first day of this CRIG seminar series. The student transition to university can be very challenging, and aside from any external forces that may be impacting their learning journey, it can also depend on what library experiences they had before they commenced university, what library resources were available to them in secondary school, and also what are their prior experiences with libraries, including public libraries and including librarians. Now, when I went through library school, this is just a bit of an aside, this was last century, I recall learning the process of self-directed learning. I hope they do still teach that in the library degree. So it wasn't a matter what discipline you ended up working in, you utilised the same research skills, but just within a different discipline. Keep in mind that we might have the skill set, oh, I'm researching this, I'm just going to go this way, I'll go this way. We've been doing it for a bit of a time now, but this process may not be the same direction for students from other disciplines, but it is a good method to encourage students to develop early on in their studies. So just 4 key takeaways that I'd like to share with you, and this was from my experience as a facilitator in Jodl's Guided Self-Determination program. Every student experience is unique to that student, even though through your experience, you might think it is common to all students. So you've seen many students and you go, yep, that's another one, another first year, it's week 4, it's the same type of thing I get asked every time in week 4. What I want to draw in is that this student that I worked with really thought that they were the only one experiencing this first year challenge and that every other student in their cohort knew exactly what they were doing. This even limited the students' ability to attend on-campus activities due to this fear of everyone else in the active seminar knowing what they were doing and this student didn't. When students do come to the library for assistance, they often feel embarrassed to do so. So keep that in the back of your mind. Sometimes when students come to me for research advice for their assignment, they can't always articulate what their problem is. They just say, I just don't know where to get started. This is my first assessment, okay? And sometimes students have not made the connection what the assessment is actually for. They take one look at the assignment and have a mental block straight away. And it may not be obvious to them that an assessment is to assess what they've learned so far. That is, if the assessment is released in week 5, then the content of weeks 1 to 4 is generally what the student is being assessed on. Instead of turning to Wikipedia or being overwhelmed by Google searches, I often advise students to simply return and review the weekly content of that unit that's been covered so far. There may be one resource, what we call a golden article out there, that's been covered in the unit content so far that could be a good starting point for them. I've met many students over my 8 years at Deakin who do truly want to do well, but there are so many work-life balances that they need to resolve in order to stick to a good studying routine. And you've just got to be aware of that, but also be aware of what your role as a librarian can do to help guide them on their learning journey. Now, Bodil discussed active listening, and I'm a real advocate of active listening. Learn to do it. There's resources out there. There's probably even a LinkedIn course out there, or you've picked it up through your library degree and your library experience so far. Do it and do it well. It is an excellent communication skill for librarians that will assist librarians, but it'll also assist students when you're meeting with students. So how can librarians support students to be more self-determined when they undertake their research for assessment? Don't assume that students are as enthralled in the discipline topic as you may be. If you're an expert librarian assisting that faculty and you just love that area, don't assume that they do too, because it might be their first interaction and they're still just settling themselves in. Any type of guided resources that the library produces, and we all produce great resources on our library websites. We've got resource guides, we've got search planners, we've got self-help videos, we've got modules. They're all great. We know they're great. We develop them. But don't assume that students have already reviewed these resources or even the library website, or that they've even attended orientation sessions before they actually come to see you. I always think it's best to guide students through the appropriate resources, through the website, anything that you've created, and encourage them to really take a step-by-step process in the research. And yes, I've met students at midday who said their assignment is due at 8 o'clock and they're just getting started. You still got to make them do a step-by-step process. This is just one example. I'm sure you've got many where you are. Deakin Library Search Tips and Planning module. We have similar ones adapted for law. Any type of good self-paced guided resource that you can get the students to map out what they're researching before they even start looking in databases, and encourage them to go slowly. Before you meet with students for student consultations, here are just some few things that I just like to remind that I need to remind myself most of the time. A student asks for something, they might telephone, they won't tell you who they are, but they need to meet with you within an hour. Always make sure that you know the background of the student's needs. I always ask for their student ID and their unit code. It is essential to ensure that the student is a student from your university. And seriously, sometimes I have been contacted from students from other universities. So always make sure it's one of your students that you're working with, or that you're aware that they're not. Be aware of their unit code, and this is important because, for example, I support Deakin Law students, and sometimes I assist criminology students. So I need to be aware that's a different faculty, their research needs and resources may be different. Give yourself plenty of time. So set yourself an hour aside for that consultation, but their research needs and resources, restrict the student to a shorter time period. I'm just going to stop for 1 sec because I hear something going in the background. Okay, all
It's
right.
muted now.
Okay, no worries. I just thought maybe there's something wrong with my presentation. All right, so give yourself plenty of time, but I sometimes would give the student half an hour, but I'd give myself a whole hour. So I've got time to prepare for that consultation as well. Also, be clear about what you can assist with. Okay, this is really important. Sometimes a student, again, another one where their assessment is due that night, they send me an email and they say, I want to meet with you today. My assignment's due tonight. I want you to go through my legal referencing for my assessment. It's really important. When I reply to the student that I do not preview assignments before submissions and I will not be going through your legal referencing footnotes before you submit your assignment, then I don't hear back from them. So be clear about what you can assist with. That helps them. It saves embarrassment when you do meet, and then 5 minutes into the consultation, you go, no, you've got to go and do something else. I can't help you with that. I always like to email preparatory information to the student before we meet, for example, a search planner, and I'll tell the student, fill out that search planner before we meet for our consultation. Again, it saves time that you don't spend the first 2 minutes working out what has the student done. You might have been prepared to show them a database only to discover that they've already searched in that database. But also it helps them decide for themselves what they're researching for and what approaches they want to take. Do a bit of background and research about what you think they're looking for, but keep those thoughts to yourself. The reason why I do this is because I just want to be aware of what research paths they're likely to think they need to take. And sometimes it's good to be aware of any dangerous obstacles that they might encounter. For example, we have a unit that does interpretation of the Victorian Charter. The assignment instruction clearly says, do not look at the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. And then I'll get a student that says, I want to look up an international treaty. And you go, are you sure? Go back and look at your assignment instructions. During the student consultations, we've all got a few do's and don'ts, and I'd hope that when we've got some time at the end, you can share your do's and don'ts with me or your experiences as well. Do have a positive mindset about the student's willingness to do well. So even though this might be the 5th student from the same unit and it's week 4 and you get these queries every time, keep an open mind because students will surprise you, particularly those conscientious and diligent students who want to do well. Also, you might be having an exhausting day, but they don't know that either. So do keep a positive mindset when you meet with a student. Some students learn in a different way. So some students are visual learners, some are textual learners, and some are audio learners. So sometimes it is necessary and useful to explain or demonstrate the same resource, but in 3 different ways and set it out differently or in different formats. Again, set expectations on how you can assist. You are here to help with navigating resources and guiding them to library-specific resources that are available to them to help them so that in the future they can guide their own learning. Actively listen to what their stumbling blocks may be to undertake and research. Guide them through any relevant library guides, and if possible, I do this often with students. Many times now they want to meet online through Zoom. Navigate them whilst they are undertaking the research in a database. Okay, so you're a navigator through their research journey. You are not the leader. You're not doing the research for them. Sometimes you find that the issue is not about library resources at all, and they self-disclose that there are other issues impacting their ability to study effectively. If so, you will need and you should refer them to any study support or student services to support them, or back to the lecturer if it's specifically about unit content. You are a librarian, and that is what you do best. Do not hesitate to refer students to other experts and support services who are better able to assist them. And then when the student is ready to come back to do research, make a follow-up consultation with them. At the end of the consultation, I always like to summarize the things that we've covered during the consultation. So just to wrap up, I showed you this database. You did this exercise with this resource guide. We looked at this module. Okay. Also, I will often send a follow-up email after the consultation with links to the resources because sometimes they can be going like this. Oh, she's going here, we're going there. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I want to save that article. I might need it later. Send a follow-up email to say, this is what we discussed during our consultation, and here are some other resources that you might like to look for. The don'ts. Don't attempt to rescue. I know we are helpful people and we can't help wanting to rescue everyone, but The best way for a student to be rescued is for them to build the skills so that they can look after themselves and they can learn how to do research themselves. You are a librarian and you can assist with finding resources. Don't be tempted to do the research for them and say, here's the answer. If they've got a citation to a journal article, I always advise do not email the journal article to them, say, here you go. Email to them the steps on how they can locate that article for future research. Be guided on what they think they are looking for and then guide them to relevant resources or databases. Giving the students a sense of self-direction does empower them to have more confidence that they are in more control of what they are doing. Don't assume the students have ever kept up to speed with the unit content so far. It's good to do a pulse check on that. I have had said to students, have you actually watched the weeks 3 and 4 content? And they go, look, I haven't got time. And I'd say, you really do need to look at that content because that will help you prepare for your assessment. Don't overwhelm them with too much information. You can meet with a student again. Sometimes I will do a very short consultation and then I'll say to the student, get started with your research and then feel free to ask for a consultation with me. It can be tempting to show them this and that and whatever. It's just going to go too much. Keep to a few resources and show them where they can find more information. Don't be tempted to lead the conversation onto what you think they should be doing. So don't assume. Sometimes you think to yourself, oh, now if I had this assignment, what would I do? You've got to be guided on what they think they should be doing and what answers they think they need to look for, and then you guide them to the resources. Don't speculate. Just don't. Look, I do it. Just don't. Please learn from me. Don't speculate anything about the student. Just listen, 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 and then guide. So this is a recent article that I was reading just a few weeks ago that I want to share with you. I wasn't aware of this journal, Computers in Libraries, and I was very surprised when I found this article when I was researching for this presentation. But it's really important to just, as we've covered so far, that every person is an individual. We are different, the student is different. We both have different backgrounds and different lived experiences. And we have a lack of insight on the diverse backgrounds of a user. We have no idea what their personal experiences are and what experiences they are bringing with them to the library. I just want to say you do not know the type of life this student is experiencing. The fact that they have asked for a library consultation is an indication that they have made a dedicated effort in their studies and that should be seen as a positive decision. There's some really great information about best practice with library patrons interactions with this article, one of which is active listening, which is what Bodil mentioned before. This is a great quote. It's really important to pick up the skills of active listening. So I've just got 3 things. Guide students to take control of their research journey. That way they'll feel more responsible and in control. Empower the students by equipping them with the research tools and on how to use authoritative research resources. Encourage the students to feel that the library is a safe and welcoming space for them and that the library staff are always willing to assist. Yes, you can ask me today and you can ask me tomorrow and you can ask me Thursday next week. I'm here until you get it right. No question is a silly question. We know that, but students don't always know that. And remember, and please tell me, do they still teach this in library school? A reference interview process. Don't forget the skills that you learned, that a student consultation, or if you work in a public library, working with members of the public, anyone that you deal with, always think of a step-by-step process when you're dealing with people and actively listen to what their issue is. That's all I've got to say. We've got a few moments now for any questions, but also if anyone would like to put in chat any suggestions, I just really want to open it up for an open discussion. Bodil, what do you think about that? If we should just have an open discussion now?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Michelle.
Okay.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you both so much. Bodil, also well done with tech issues and no notes. I don't know how you did that. That's amazing. And we've already had quite a bit of discussion in the chat already. I think there was people had mentioned the great point, Michelle and Bodil, is to not assume, listen. And I think we can all be a little bit too quick to fix and rescue, as you said, instead of like listening and guiding. And there was also some chat about kind of people relating to the students in this situation. No, many people have been in those situations where they have been that student struggling. So this kind of idea of that we can relate to that as well, and using that relatability in our work. So thank you so much. We do have a few questions, if you wouldn't mind answering those.
Sure.
Fantastic. So the first one, I guess, is more directed towards Bodil, and it's around, have you been able to, what's the kind of the success rate around the guided self-determination? Has there been any fantastic feedback or student success rates, or anything like that?
Yeah, very, very good question. And I think what we have seen is that it has been, for some, has actually been a life-changing experience. That's the strongest we have seen, where people have actually realized that they needed to change. They might not even want to be in the university at all, or they needed to take another course or enroll in a different course. So overall, we have had very great success. There are commitments to 3 sessions or 4 sessions, and sometimes we find that 1 or 2 is enough, or from the student's point of view seems to be enough. So there are some dropouts, but overall it is a very effective methods. And if I can refer to light, it's just come out in Lancet actually, in cancer, where we have followed women with breast cancer for 2 years, that the guided self-determination methods have actually increased quality of life and motivation. It's only, and they were very excited over there in Denmark, because it's the only methods that seems to have been consistently helping people to manage their lives, whatever that is, with cancer or in other access. But that one is a unique one. I think in terms of students, we didn't have big numbers, so I can't show you a survey sort of thing, but I can indicate that we have had great success with the guided self-determination. And we have got it on the list as a support for everyone who are going to an academic progress committee. Their guided self-determination is a part of that list of offerings for support.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bodil. And we've had a few more comments in the chat about your kind of request for other people's advice. And we have advice around always asking and seeking for help. One comment is that the best advice that I was given in my undergrad studies was to start a glossary of unfamiliar words in each unit, literary criticism, for the purpose of searching, and to use essays to demonstrate understanding. And also that it takes courage to ask a question, to ask for help. And I think that's something that you mentioned at the beginning, especially as a student, and we should always really appreciate their bravery. And I'm wondering if either of you have any comments on any of those, or as well, if if this has influenced any other areas of your life as well, or any other areas of your work, this kind of guided self-determination method. I'll ask Michelle first.
Right. I've tried it on an elderly relative, actually. I do find sometimes with family members and friends that when they come to talk to you, when they're upset about something, that this actual process of active listening and just helping them guide through what decisions they need to make, I think does empower them to feel better about the decision that they do make, as opposed to you preaching to them what you should be doing. With the students that I've worked with, look, I've been at Deakin for 8 years now, and I did see a question there about recurring students, and yes, I have had a few recurring students, and part of that is that Deakin University is very supportive of what students who have disabilities, and some of that can be cognitive disabilities, and sometimes, yes, I have had a student just about every time they have an assessment that requires research, they contact me straight away, and I step them through those same processes because I want to be patient. That's what we're here for. But I always try to, you still need to keep control of the consultation. And it is hard work controlling a consultation and controlling conversations to make the student be more empowered in the way that they approach their research. For what sometimes one student, it just goes, oh yeah, I got it, I'll be right now, and you never see them again. Some other students do need that bit of extra support all the way through. And I just think keeping these skills in the back of your mind does help you with any interaction. And we are all good people, and it just helps us promote this type of behavior so that other people learn from us as well. And as librarians, I just think get out there, be seen in any way you can, orientation sessions. Those of you that work on campuses, physically be seen around the library, and look at people as you go past them, because sometimes I'll just be walking across the floor of the library, and if I look at smile at a student, they will suddenly ask me for assistance. So just by being there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Bodil, did you want to add something? Sorry.
Yeah, I just think Michelle is reporting it so beautifully, but I think it's the guide self-determination is something you can add to your toolbox. I don't think you have to start right from the beginning and be overwhelmed by my talk here today, but maybe have a little look at the website and have a little bit look on what how we work, because this is not so I'm sure you're using active listening. I'm sure you're using mirroring, and it's just to put some words on it, but to listen and as they now have been so much highlighted in Michelle's presentation, is the important thing, and to remind ourselves that we must try to be listening rather than preparing for replying. Is a good way, but this is just an extra thing you can put in your toolbox, and to remind yourself on self-determination, and that it is their terms, really, with their life. And as you were saying, Michelle, the backgrounds is so different, and we don't know really, and they don't know ours. So we need to have that conversation, and the worksheets are really helpful with that. They're really helpful to establish that the rapport and to work together in a partnership.
Amazing. I think that's great that you said about, it's their life. And we just had a comment in the chat about, this is about student empowerment, right? And this is our theme for the day, so fits absolutely beautifully. And we're out of time, but I want to thank you both so much. I do have a read of the chat because there's so many comments in there, and there's some questions that we didn't quite get to. But I would please like you all to join me in thanking Bodil and Michelle for their time, for addressing our questions, and I hope that you took away from this as much as I did. We're now going to take a bit of a break, and then we'll return at 11:35. And my lovely CRIG colleague, Ange Johns-Hayden, who is the Senior Research Librarian at La Trobe University and a Medical Librarian at Bendigo Health, sorry, Ange, will introduce our lightning talks. So we will see you at 11:30. Thank you so much.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good break and are ready for our exciting lightning talks. Remember that you can submit your questions via the Q&A function throughout the talks. Just please indicate which talk your question is about, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Chloe Hollard, a scholarly services librarian from Deakin University, who will share insights on enhancing digital and information literacy through Deakin Library's new workshops. Let's give a warm welcome to Chloe.
Thanks, Angela. Just checking you can see my slides. Delightful.
Good.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe, and I'm currently a scholarly services librarian at Deakin University. And today I'm going to chat about the recent refresh of our workshop suite that's aimed at enhancing digital and information literacy skills among our HDRs. Fair warning, I've leaned heavily into a lemon imagery with my presentation because of the whole refresh theme I've decided to go with. So that's all I'll say about that. And I'd also like to say here too that while I supported this project, I am today the messenger. Our project lead was the incomparable Fiona Russell. All right, so to give you just a little preview of the journey that we'll take together today, we'll chat briefly about where we were and why things needed to change. I'll share what we did to change it and where we are now, including some feedback, and then I'll leave you with some fresh slices that you can take away with you. All right, so where were we? Prior to the launch of our refreshed training offerings this year, our training options for HDRs were dispersed across multiple teams and multiple formats. So we had our research team within the library producing online materials, running open access week events, and providing workshops and full day researcher training on bespoke or customized topics. And we also had our team of health librarians running specific sessions on conducting advanced reviews, where they really deep dived into the stages of that process. So in summary, we had a few teams doing lots of things. When it comes to why it needed to change, I want to say that the refresh of our training offerings didn't wholly and solely come about because things weren't working per se. But rather, like many academic libraries, Deacon's structure rather was reimagined, to put it that way, and a new strategic library plan was released. And with all of this came the need for new ways of working to be established. And really, this provided us with a ripe opportunity to do a big refresh of the training that we were providing HDRs. And this was really to ensure that it aligned to the new strategic plan and priorities and work model, that our offerings were sustainable and scalable, and importantly, that our content was really in line with the current and emerging landscape of scholarly communications. So what we did to change it, well, like many things, it starts with many conversations. And these conversations were had between our Library Director of Information, the Researcher Development Academy at Deakin, and lots of teams across the library. And the workshops were born from collaboration across these newly established teams. So content was developed by subject matter experts within our scholarly communications team, in consultation and collaboration with our incredibly experienced team of scholarly services librarians who provide that discipline expertise to our HDR students, like Michelle Bendel from earlier. And the topics of the workshops were designed to respond to this shifting academic and technological landscape, and on theme, enhance the students' information literacy skills so that they can succeed in their research and their careers. So in terms of where we are now, from the collaborative efforts of these teams came the launch of our suite of workshops. And the workshops are available to HDRs as part of their individual learning plan, which is really designed to empower students to develop relevant and tailored and transferable skills to advance their research. Each workshop is co-facilitated by scholarly services librarians from both the HAS and STEM disciplines, making these sessions kind of discipline agnostic or inclusive, depending on how you think about it. And really, this allows students to attend or re-watch any of the sessions, regardless of their discipline alignment, thereby kind of providing more opportunities for them to access the learning. So to give you a brief taste of the topics, we've got our advanced literature searching, which builds on those foundational search skills. We've got systematic searching for STEM, which is the only discipline-specific workshop at the moment, but we'll look to expand to include HAS in this down the track. And this helps students develop knowledge of systematic and scoping reviews and other evidence synthesis in those disciplines. We've got publishing and open access, which equips students with the information and skills they need to make more informed and values-based decisions about their scholarly outputs and publishing, which is very relevant on the back of Open Access Week last week. And importantly, sorry, Ramona, I will mention Gen AI, but our fourth session is on the responsible use of Gen AI in research, which really does what it says on the tin, and helps students develop an understanding of using these tools responsibly, including the importance of their maintaining awareness of and compliance with our policies and guidelines. So what are people saying? Well, this is the first year that the workshops have run, so they're still blossoming and being refined based on the feedback from participants. And here you can see some of the feedback that we've received. Naturally, I've included all positive sound bites, but we've also received some incredibly useful and constructive feedback from participants, such as them enjoying the breakout room activities when we weren't quite too sure how they were going to go. And also students appreciating the hypotheticals and interactive scenarios that we have in our generative AI session. So as promised, some fresh slices. So really what we've done isn't necessarily groundbreaking, and your institutions will likely have the ingredients already for something like this. But really we're keeping ourselves humble by responding to feedback, culling what's not working and refining what is. As we know, the scholarly communications landscape is changing rapidly, so it's important that we're remembering that we're learning too, often alongside, if not just ahead of our students, and really giving ourselves grace in these sessions if we might not always have the answers. And finally, our training suite refresh was born from us being handed some lemons, aka a restructure. So we decided to use this opportunity to make some lemonade, and so far, so good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe, for your wonderful talk, and I really like the lemon metaphor as well. Next up, we have Lucy Napsali, our Senior Librarian, Library Services and Spaces from the University of Melbourne. And she'll be talking about the Library Challenge and how it supports skill building through a gamified learning experience. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen there? Thank you. So morning, everyone, and thanks for being here with us online today. So today I'll be walking you through how at the University of Melbourne, we incorporate an experiential-led approach to our orientation week offerings during semester 2 this year. And I hope that our experience making this switch can help you build a framework that can be applied to other skill building exercises. So first off, just for a bit of context, let's have a review of where we started. So our orientation offerings, we had 3 main approaches. So we had our new students library guide, which is a LibGuide that has all the information that students need about getting set up in their first couple of weeks at university and how the library can help them out. So we direct a lot of our traffic to that guide. We also have our library essentials sessions, which are run by our liaison librarians, and these are stage on a stage style that are run throughout O Week, just giving students some tips on how to get started with the library, trying to build those connections, but that can be a bit hard in a lecture theatre of 300 students. And then we also have our library staff, both liaison teams and our frontline services at booths at our orientation fair, handing out some merch, chatting to students, and just trying to be that warm, friendly face. So there's nothing really drastically wrong with any of these approaches, and we still use them in conjunction with our new experiential learning activity. But we found that we just weren't getting all of the outcomes that we really wanted, namely students making their way into the libraries physically during their first week, connecting with the library staff and connecting with the library space and feeling that sense of belonging. We had feedback coming from students that they hesitated approaching staff for help because they were nervous about being a nuisance, which of course we all know they're not a nuisance and we love to have questions, but they feel a bit nervous about approaching staff. They're unsure of what they can ask or what they should ask. Some of them didn't even know that library staff are available to help them, which was reflected in some discussions we were having yesterday at CRIG about students being nervous about what they can ask and not feeling comfortable in the space. So that students were reporting these issues indicated to us that our current information-led approach wasn't doing everything we wanted it to. So we made the decision to incorporate experiential learning into our O-Week program. So why experiential? We don't have a lot of time today, so I'm not going to dig down too deep into this. Basically, we decided to go with an experiential-led approach for the following reasons. It provides engagement by engaging mind and body through embodied learning. So we wanted something that involves students using their bodies so they were actively engaged in the process of learning by having multiple inputs involved in their learning process. Instead of just sitting and listening to someone talk, their bodies are moving around a space, they're getting engaged, they're getting involved. It increases autonomy of the learner, which helps align outcomes to learner goals. So, which ties in beautifully to the talk this morning. So we wanted students to take a central role in their learning and have the autonomy to get the skills they needed in a way that made sense for them. Experiential learning opens up opportunities for students to tackle tasks in their own way and do their own meaning finding in an exercise. And then it also increases the depth of understanding through application of learned information. So this connects us back to our first point about often students learn better by doing rather than listening. So we can tell them well enough how to find a book on a shelf in our library guide, but until they actually go and do it, it's not really integrated into that learning. We want an experience that got students into the library and doing the things that they needed to do to get set up for success for their studies, not only hearing about what services and resources we provide. So, taking all these points into consideration, we decided to build an experiential-led rather than information-led activity, and we came up with the Library Challenge. So you can see here we've got the landing page for the game with our little library mascot that we came up with for the game, Larry. So if you don't know, the Unimeld mascot is Barry the bear. So we kind of ripped off Barry, don't tell the marketing team, and created Larry the polar bear as our little mascot for the challenge. So the Library Challenge is an app-based scavenger hunt that allows students to explore our library spaces and meet our staff through a series of questions that guide them through the space. So we had a few aims in mind when designing the challenge. We wanted to increase student confidence exploring spaces, and we wanted to explicitly welcome students to the library and create that really, really important early positive experience with staff that is the foundation for all their future success with their studies. So let's take a look at the format and show you how we tried to achieve those goals. So we created the Library Challenge with an app called Deckle, which allows you to create online scav hunts and a couple of other challenges. So we use their incredible race game, which allows you to have different question types the students can answer by entering free text, choosing multiple choice, taking a video, scanning a QR code, doing a drawing, or taking a photo. We had 5 different challenges running, so one for each of the branches on our main Parkville campus. And each challenge was tailored to fit that branch, though we kept the type of questions very consistent across the board. We just changed up the locations and some different things. We also made sure that we kept the challenge relatively short. We're aware that students are really busy during O-Week and just are like getting bombarded with activities. And we thought that if the challenge was too long, they'd give up halfway through. And if it's a shorter challenge, it's something that they can kind of fit in between going to all the different sessions that they've been booked in for. So we want to try and keep that balance of achievable, but still long enough that they're getting the knowledge that they need. So we collaborated with frontline staff in each of our branches to come up with the questions, addressing the sort of information that students really need in those early first weeks. So things like, where do you return a book? How do you find a book on the shelves? Where are the project rooms? Things like that. We also included questions that were explicitly about that welcoming and inclusion. So we had a question that involves students picking their favorite spot in the library that they think they might want to study in throughout the semester and taking a photo of that spot. And then we also had a question that said that they had to find out the name of the person who was on desk so they could break the ice with staff and have that really positive first initial experience. We wanted them to feel explicitly welcomed into the libraries and feel like they had permission to be there and to go exploring and to feel comfortable in that space. So we went with a mix of different question types to keep it interesting for students. So most of them were QR code scan ones. So we made cute little Larry the bear holding QR codes and we stuck them on the objects they needed to find, like the return chute. But then, as I was saying before, we had a free text entry that was for entering the name of the person on desk. And we also had the photo one, which was nominating the study space that really resonated with you. So you can see an example of the question here, and you can see that we tried to keep it casual and make it not feel like homework and like something actually a little bit fun. Additionally, we also didn't include a leaderboard. That is an option with Deckle that you can do, but we thought this just might encourage students to speed through it, thinking whoever was fastest was going to win a prize, whereas the prize was a random draw. So we did actually have prizes as an incentive to complete the challenge. We couldn't afford to supply the prizes, so we actually got them by creating a partnership with the student programs team. So in exchange for directing traffic to their orientation booths that they were hosting, they gave us some funding so we could get some prizes. So the prizes that we had were, we created uniquely branded stickers for each branch. So we did all the design in-house, so that was all free. We just did it on Canva, and student programs paid for the printing. We thought stickers was a cute option because we noticed just all students' water bottles and laptops are covered in stickers. And we thought it might encourage a bit of a collect them all attitude. That would encourage them to finish all 5 branches. Additionally, if they finished all 5 challenges, they could go to the student programs orientation booth where they'd get a keep cup, and they'd get a free hot chocolate or a coffee, and they could chat to the students programs team. So that was our part of the deal with the student programs team, is we'd direct them to that booth. And they also provided us with some hoodies and an iPad. So everyone who completed, every completion of a game went into the draw to win one of those big prizes. So they were all given to us by the student programs team. We also worked with them to get the challenge embedded into Central Orientation Week advertising and registration platforms, because that's where the students were. We met students where they already were to make sure we got the engagement with this activity. So that's how we set it all up. But how did we do? So let's have a look at some of the stats. This challenge went above and beyond our expectations in terms of engagement. We had 1,516 participants, separate individuals, complete at least one challenge, with 4,124 challenge completions in total, which for semester 2 orientation, which is a much quieter intake, was astounding. We have 30,993 library visits over that period, which is an increase of 33% on the same time last year. We gave out 2,550 branch stickers and 780 keep cups. We were actually so successful that we ran out of prizes midweek, which our fabulous frontline staff managed with grace, frantically changing posters and gently letting the students know that there were no stickers left. So the students really responded to the game, and it was through students chatting on social media that the game was really circulated. On Wednesday, a student posted a WeChat moment, which absolutely exploded our attendance of the game. This was quickly followed by a student-made how-to guide appearing on Redbook, which received a bunch of traction. As I said earlier, by Thursday, we ran out of stickers at our service desk, and the cups at the orientation booth followed soon after. We also updated our posters and our game screens to reflect the fact that we had no more giveaways, but we still got a lot of engagement, even post the giveaways not being available. So here we've got a slightly chaotic screen that kind of takes on the energy of the week, that looks at some of the student responses that we got to the challenge. We especially love this one in the middle, because we think it really encapsulates what we were hoping to achieve, that students would feel comfortable and welcomed in our libraries. That nearly all of the promotion of the game occurred outside official channels through organic word of mouth sharing really showed to us that we'd hit the mark with this activity. That students liked it enough to talk about it and recommend it to one another, affirmed for us that our approach was working. We also received some really great feedback from our frontline staff who really bore the brunt of this absolute onslaught of participants. It was an excellent opportunity to provide that first warm initial experience of the library and create a foundation for a future relationship with the library. Frontline staff actually reported to us that after O Week, many of them had students coming up to them to the desk to say they felt comfortable coming up and asking a question because they remembered them from the game in orientation, which is exactly what we wanted. Students feeling comfortable in the space and knowing that we're here for them, we're ready to answer their questions and support them through their studies. So I just want to end this talk with a message one of our frontline staff sent the orientation team during the challenge, which I feel really encapsulates how the whole process went. When I told a student when running out the Keep Cup, she said the game is popular because it's meaningful. By taking an experiential approach, we're able to create something meaningful for our students and set them up for future success with the library. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. That's great. How cute's Larry? And I don't think you're ever too old for stickers. So
no, they were very popular amongst staff as well. They were trying to get them before students did.
Okay, so next we'll hear from Nicole Gammy, Claire O'Hanlon and Georgia Sukas, who aren't able to present live, but have very kindly provided a recording of their presentation, which I think Claire's going to share. Nicole and Georgia are from La Trobe University, while Claire is now at Deakin University. The group will be talking about their work on an open access textbook that empowers students to engage with public history. So let's watch their recording now.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so Georgia is an apology, but Nicole and I will be available to answer questions. And let's hope this works. Hi, I'm Claire, and today I'll be presenting with Nicole Gammy and Georgia Sukas on critical information literacy and open pedagogy and publishing. This is a quick overview of what we'll cover today. So, I had been keen to move beyond advocating for open content and towards advocating for open pedagogy as a way to help develop critical information literacies for quite a while, and eventually realised that capstone subjects like making history could be the perfect opportunity to do so, particularly given the partnerships I'd built with history academics and students before then. This subject involved a larger amount of independent research on a topic that students got to choose, and the production of non-traditional assessment types like podcasts or videos or museum displays that were closer to the authentic and not disposable assessment tasks that are characteristic of open pedagogy. And they consolidated and built on skills learnt throughout the history major. I thought it would be great to create a platform to honour student labour and for students to be able to share what they've made with and their reflections on the process with communities that they've researched and with future cohorts and prospective employers. The great work that La Trobe history academics do to make histories accessible has also greatly inspired me, and I wanted to share this work alongside student work to help inspire others. Finally, I wanted a more empowering way to teach students about copyright than abstract, compliance, and often fear-based approaches that I'd encountered before. In the spirit of open practice, we had an iterative approach to publishing and published the first edition in 2023, which included an introduction written by academics, selected student projects and their reflections, and a chapter on planning for researching and publishing public histories that supported reflective and inclusive practice and community engagement beyond the university. We hope to publish the new edition soon, which will include more student and academic work and a revised planning and research chapter co-authored with Nicole, Georgia, and our colleague, Dr. Elliot Freeman. Nicole was the new history librarian and added more interactive activities and refined the process for student work. Georgia added content on accessibility, and Elliot had given a guest lecture in the subject and helped ensure that our chapter related to archives incorporated an archivist's perspective. It was important for us to acknowledge the limitations of and frustrations with copyright laws that haven't kept up with digital environments and practices and often benefit corporations over creators and communities. We did so by introducing Creative Commons licenses and the continuum of openness as more flexible and nuanced alternatives to traditional copyright. We also shared insights from community history work with the Australian Queer Archives and beyond, and from historians and heritage professionals to help further contextualise content. And we encouraged creative solutions to copyright restrictions as well. Ultimately, teaching students about copyright and helping them publish beyond the university helps show that we respect their intellectual labour and encourages and supports them to think about the ethical implications of publishing their work and to also respect the intellectual labour of others. Now I'll hand over to Georgia, who will talk about some more important access instruction that she has helped develop.
Thank you, Claire. Accessibility was a new and important addition to the chapter. We recognize that as information professionals tasked with helping students prepare their research for publication, we have a responsibility to provide them with the advice they need to ensure everyone can access their content. But simply providing instructions for inclusive research and publication can fall short. Without context, we risk overlooking the issues that affect accessibility. Often it's the steps we don't take during critical planning stages that creates barriers. Therefore, it's important for students to understand the diversity of their audience, the different ways they might engage with material, and the steps they can take to produce inclusive content. The aim in this part of the chapter was to inspire students to reflect on and refine their own practices, and in doing so, develop vital skills in information and digital literacy, skills that are highly transferable and will serve them well through their publication and well into their future careers. The chapter provides advice to our readers on how to format text for print accessibility, using proper fonts, headings, and alternative text. Further guidance is provided for audiovisual content, including the use of captions and transcripts. We've also provided links to resources where students can learn more about planning for inclusive publication. It is our hope that as students continue to engage with these ideas, they become more aware of the unique abilities and experiences of the people in the world around them, and that they in turn become advocates in building a more inclusive future. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Nicole.
Thank you, Georgia. I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that we used to incorporate new content in 2024. The first thing I needed to do was actually sell the idea to the new student cohort, and to provide them with some reasons to be involved with the project. Luckily, we actually had the original resource, which was fabulous, but also explaining things like resume, benefits of being on their resume, and the skills they would pick up doing this was also some other critical selling points. In order to just publish the highest quality content developed by the students, we asked them to submit an expression of interest, which was done before they actually received their marks, and they needed to get a mark of 75 or over to be included in the project. Those that were successful then underwent 2 rounds of peer review, the first being the academics' feedback, and the second being further academics not involved with the subject providing some additional feedback on the content. It's now within the publication process, so going through some copyright checks and copy editing before we're hoping to release the next volume in early 2025. Next slide, please. So in terms of future hopes and dreams, it's a great opportunity to develop some skills. We're also hoping to have some greater community engagement, including skills with the existing content. There's also an opportunity to do some collaboration with community-led archives, libraries, history groups, as well as museums and professional associations that they may use some of their content in which to publish future content on. Next slide, please. In terms of hot off the press, one adaptation that's already happened to the chapter that Claire, Georgia, Elliot and myself put together is in Burning Issues in the Classics. So if you want a sneak peek at the content, then please have a look at this and it will give you an idea of the updated content. And finally, you'll see some resources that we used, and we're happy to take any questions that you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. What a fantastic talk and a valuable resource that you've all created, and that's really engaged everyone involved. Our next speaker is Michelle de Espura. I hope I've pronounced your name right, sorry, from Monash University, who will be discussing image use and AI ethics in creative disciplines. Let's welcome Michelle.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt to share. How does that look? All good? Good. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. So I'm going to talk today about a new lesson at Monash University that was built in collaboration with the Fine Arts, Design and Architecture faculty, which we call MARDA. Where's my mouse? There it is. So the lesson aims to teach students how to find, use and cite images in their work, including AI images. Sorry, Ramona. Reach, I've broken it. So we wanted to empower students to feel confident in using imagery for their assessments and their creative practice in a way that's both appropriate and ethical. So this lesson was launched in semester 1 this year and is now embedded across 3 different core units in architecture and design. And so it should be reaching about 540 students as of semester 1, 2025. It's also actually been really useful to upskill library staff as well, because there are lots of faculties that don't use images as much, but they do sometimes have to help students in this way. So how did it all come about? Well, an architecture academic wanted to utilise our expertise to develop an online resource to support their students as well as new tutors, specifically around understanding copyright and the ethical use of AI in the visual image space. So I met with key stakeholders and we discussed and identified sort of the issues and the gaps in knowledge that they were finding. And these then became the learning objectives of the lesson. So in creative disciplines, students have the regular theory units, but they also have studio units. These are like practical, hands-on, project-based classes. So a MARTA assessment might be an essay, but it could also be something like a physical object, creating a portfolio, a website, a model, all sorts of different things. And so one similarity across all the different types of works that MARTA students do is that they need to find and use images, and that could be for inspiration or for discussion and analysis. And the assessments often actually allow or even really encourage at the moment the use of AI-generated images as well. So we were faced with this question of how can the library support students who are engaging with this diverse medias and going beyond the traditional text-based research skills that we're used to? How can we help them to navigate the complexities of image use and AI? And how can we help students to understand that outside of their studies, they really need to think carefully about how they're using, reusing, and sharing images? A lot of support content did sort of exist, but it was really fragmented and inconsistent in tone and style, and it was held over a number of different online locations, so it was kind of difficult for students to utilize it effectively. And so this kind of led to the idea that we really needed something new. So this is what we identified as the learning objectives for the lesson. It was really important to empower students outside of what was required only for their assessments, so that they develop the skills and knowledge for their future careers as creative professional practitioners as well. So for example, students kind of struggle to understand that like fair use copyright exception doesn't apply to purely artistic purposes. So there's actually a lot of limitations on what people can create, both morally and legally. And you can see here, of course, that AI is really just a small part, one small section in a holistic lesson on image use. So looking at copyright, looking at library image databases, finding images on the web, and attributing and citing images correctly as well. So I keep losing my mouse. So an online lesson meant I could bring all the existing relevant information into one place. I could pitch it to the right level. I could tailor it specifically for the MARTA students. I could fill any gaps, ensure a logical flow, and then we could embed it into their units and their LMS. So we aim to create a lesson that would be relevant across all of the MARTA degrees for both undergraduate and postgraduate students, for tutors as well, that would be really easy to update. That was a really key consideration to save us a lot of time. As you know, updating can take forever, as well as ensuring the lesson could be used in a variety.
You still got sound? Oh, it's me. All right, great.
All good? Yeah, so it was also really important to create the content collaboratively. So I worked really closely with the library's copyright advisor, who is amazing, big shout out to Megan, and as well as incorporating feedback from lecturers that were involved as well. And UX design, of course, a really important foundation. So I used this simple magic framework that's from this paper, as well as general best practice in building online lessons, so that I focused on making the lesson maintainable, right? Simple to update, where one change is going to feed out to all the different places that it's used in. So I used something called Articulate Rise 360 as the software, because that was something we already had a license to. Needed to be available, right? So embedded in the unit LMS, really easy access at the point of need. Geared at users, so that's utilizing those UX design principles. So keeping content really straightforward and minimal, making it really easy to scan, limiting that cognitive load by using chunking, diagrams, visual resources, accordions, step-by-step activities, interactive components. Informative was that we had the clear learning objectives. There's clear activities and quizzes and really authentic real-world examples and scenarios, which I'll show you in a minute. So by connecting the learning to real life contexts and problems, students find the content more relevant, more meaningful, more interesting, and this really increases their engagement and motivation to learn. And finally, customizable. So each section could be standalone. People can jump in, pick and choose what they need when they need it. It can be done asynchronously or independently, scaffolded as an activity in class from beginning to end, however. So it's really, really flexible, and that was really important. So I just want to show one example here of one of the authentic learning scenarios around copyright and Creative Commons. So here is Carlos. He's a MATA student. He wants to use online images in an assessment, and students are able to select from different options throughout the scenario. And then again, he's got a different question here. He wants to use online images, use them on Instagram. So once the students select an option, it gives them feedback and then continues along the story. Here is a quick example of what the AI images. It's a very low quality GIF, apologies. But you can see the type of what it looks like and the types of things it covers. So things like the benefits of using AI, some issues of using AI and bias, privacy, intellectual property, activities with multiple choice questions, clickable images, and information on prompts and where you can go to further develop your skills.
Just 1 minute, Michelle.
Yep, great, perfect. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, which is great. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see I bolded some of the really wonderful keywords there. So, great, excellent, fantastic, thorough, wonderful, helpful, comprehensible. So it's been really great to get such positive feedback from the academics. So my learnings were that my main focus was really on building something great. What I should have considered first as well was how we might actually track usage and gather feedback for evaluation, especially from students. I've got a lot of feedback from academics, less so from students. So while the Articulate platform is a fantastic tool for building, it really seems to lack some functionality that I need to clearly evaluate the usage of the lesson from the student perspective. Obviously, you have to be prepared for continual updates. It's the nature of the topic and the technology. It just seems like there's always something new to add or update. I also used AI in creating some of the lesson, both in assisting with writing up sections and creating images. And I also amalgamated existing university content that others have put a lot of work into, so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel with everything. So it was really important to me that I acknowledge this throughout the lesson as well. And finally, I had to really actively promote the resource. So conversations, email updates, talking to people, putting it into units to really encourage that wide uptake so that it would be widely used. So that's it. I've got a slide there for future reference with some resources about creating e-learning content. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing this. It's another great resource by the looks of things. Our final lightning talk is from a team of client experience librarians from Deakin University, namely Angela Gleeson and Oscar Galt. Meg Bullock also assisted with the presentation, but won't join Angela and Oscar to present today. The team will speak about enhancing information literacy through human connections, both at the physical and virtual service desks. Welcome, Angela and Oscar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen. Thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to present to you today. Oscar, Meg and I all work together at Deakin University's Geelong Waurn Ponds campus as client experience librarians. Our lightning talk today focuses on opportunities for developing information literacy in library clients at the point of need, the physical and the virtual service desk. We hope to demonstrate how simple human interactions have the potential to turn feelings of frustration and despair to confidence, independence, and empowerment. In its 50th year, information literacy is more important than ever. At a local level at Deakin, it's recognised as a key strategic objective for our library, and we're integrating the DISC Digital Capabilities Framework into our approach to information literacy. At a broader level, information literacy is a global learning outcome. And we all know it's an invaluable transferable skill that will serve clients long after they leave university as a foundation for lifelong learning and a protector against mis, dis and malinformation. Any discussion of information literacy must also consider the way that generative AI tools are rapidly transforming society. As information professionals, front-facing librarians are well placed to provide guidance on how to confidently and ethically engage with these new tools. So the Library Service Desk acts as the first point of contact for many clients seeking support. But we see the service desk as more than just a help point. It can be a foundational element in fostering a supportive learning environment where a positive and human-centred approach can impact and contribute to long-term academic success. Library desk services have a long history, evolving over time to meet the changing needs of their communities. As a central point for discovery, engagement, support and knowledge, they are a place where users can explore vast resources, engage with staff, receive personalised assistance and deepen their understanding through knowledge sharing. As many university support services transition online, the library remains one of the few places clients can access assistance on demand. Library staff are available over extended hours to accommodate client needs, and diverse communication options provide flexibility, allowing clients to engage with the library in ways that suit their individual preferences. Our inquiries at Deakin are tracked through a centralised platform, which allows for follow-up and collection of statistics. Last year, around 23% of the total inquiries fielded by our front-facing library team members were information literacy related, over 6,000 inquiries. And this figure is trending upwards in 2024, illustrating the growing need to support clients in navigating our always-on, persistently connected world. So to demonstrate the types of inquiries that we're presented with at our service points, we've created a hypothetical case study. When a client contacts us, often a scenario like the one presented on screen is all the information that we begin with. I'll now hand over to Oscar to discuss what happens next.
Thanks, Angela. So when clients contact us, as per the case study example, we usually begin with little to no knowledge about them, such as what they're studying, their level of study, their level of prior knowledge, their learning capabilities, or their previous interactions with the library. To quote author Seth Godin, the person you're working with might not know what you know, might not see what you see. It's tempting to begin where we are, but it's more useful to begin where they are. These interactions can be challenging. Lack of a common language and use of library jargon can lead to misunderstanding. Assumptions about prior knowledge can result in confusion and frustration. A well-meaning librarian's desire to provide all the information can lead to overwhelm. Time pressures and competing demands means not every interaction is optimal. Impact is hard to measure, so it's an imperfect science. In scenarios like this, we typically follow these steps. We welcome, we empathise, we build understanding, we establish a communication style, we demonstrate solutions, we think outside the box, we check in, and then we encourage future contact. Each inquiry is distinct, and we adapt our communication to the client's specific needs to provide targeted support. Beyond simply answering questions, we aim to empower clients with the skills needed for future research challenges, also which fosters independence, critical thinking, and lifelong learning skills. Unlike consultations or classes, desk interactions are spontaneous and unplanned. Collection of first-hand feedback from the client is essential to know if we've met their immediate needs and to inform future interactions. When we get it right, front-facing library team members act as a critical point of contact, helping overwhelmed clients transform into confident learners, leaving them with a clearer understanding of the steps they need to take. A positive interaction highlights the desk's significance as a vital support resource in the client experience. There is always room for improvement. Developments in technology offer opportunities for identifying themes and trends in interactions. Organisations can foster work environments where lifelong learning is championed and supported through learning groups and communities of practice. So library team members are equipped to embrace new developments. This is especially prevalent as AI becomes more everything and everywhere. Librarians on the front line are best placed to support, guide, and lead clients to improve their ability to navigate its complexities and ensure they use it effectively and responsibly. This is where the value lies with this type of personalised one-to-one education, as there is value in delivering help at the point where help is needed, and there is value in human interaction. It is these simple human interactions that have the potential to turn frustration and despair to confidence, independence, and empowerment. We'd like to conclude by acknowledging all front-facing librarians and library team members who work to support library clients. It can be challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. Thank you very much to everyone for listening today. Please feel free to get in contact with us if you'd ever like to chat. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Angela and Oscar, for sharing with us. And thanks to all of our Lightning Talk presenters today. It's always great to see all the innovative things happening at the different institutions. I think it's one of my favourite segments of the CRIG seminar each year. We've had some good questions rolling in, so we'll have a look at some of those over the next few minutes. So for Chloe, we've got a couple of questions for you. How do you find attendance at your sessions? We get a lot of sign-ups, but attendance isn't always as great.
Yeah, same, essentially. Because the sessions are quite new, we're kind of on the comms campaign to get them out there. And because these sessions are part of the individual learning plans, which are in the PhD Extra program, we're just making sure that we're in the right channels to get them out there. But kind of a similar drop-off like that I'm sure all of other libraries experience, which we kind of halve the sign-ups. Yeah, we're getting there.
How often do the sessions run, and do the same staff run them each time, or is that switched around? Wondering about staff development / scaffolding for newer librarians.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we run the sessions currently twice per year. As I mentioned, this is the first year that we're running them, so we'll see kind of what the need is next year. And in terms of facilitation, it's kind of a little gentle rotation of sorts, where we're looking to find that balance between scholarly services librarians who have the expertise in a particular topic, balanced with newer scholarly services services librarians like myself who want to kind of develop in that area. We've also got our team of research librarians on hand, and Fiona to provide support as well. So yeah, a little bit of a balancing act there.
Thanks, Chloe. Got a question for Lucy now. So the response looks amazing. Are you planning to do the same thing in 2025? Any updates or changes that you would make the next time?
Yeah, we are really hoping to run it again next year. So we're about to dive into a week planning in the next couple of weeks. So it is just dependent on whether we get the funding from library management to run the game, because we have to pay for usage of the app. So getting that through, and hopefully building that partnership again with student programs to get some of the prizes. Some of the things that we would like to change, print more stickers would be my first port of call. We really underestimated the demands. But I'd also like to update a couple of the questions. I think we could extend out by 1 or 2 more questions to include some updates we've had to the space, because post this running, we actually introduced monitors that students can plug their own devices into, and making students aware of that resource, because we've had such great feedback about it. It's been really supportive of students feeling welcome in the space, like they can actually study and have everything in front of them introducing some questions around that. And so letting new students know, A, that we have them, B, how do you use them and where do you find them? I think that would be my next development, always keeping in mind that we don't want to make it too long and we don't want to do the librarian thing that we all love to do, which is give them absolutely all the information all at once. We're desperately trying to scaffold our information throughout the semester so it's at point of need and it's not just in case.
Sounds great. And I think that the challenge is just getting people in to start with, isn't it? And then once they know what you can help them with, you know, that's a great start. So Claire and Nicole, were there any challenges that you experienced?
Do you want me to go first? I'm happy to. I guess staff changes is one that comes to mind. Yeah, so not just me, but the main subject coordinator we were working with initially had a precarious contract, and so there's now a new academic coordinator. So yeah, we got a big team involved, a lot of people involved. I did want to try to get more people from La Trobe involved as well to help keep it going. Yeah, and it's a lot of work to put together. Like, yes, the eBureau team. It did take a little bit of convincing of the eBureau team to embrace the iterative publishing sort of style, but I think the call OER PD training really helped Nikita and I refine the proposal and to make a strong proposal for that iterative approach in the spirit of openness. And it is very hard to teach people about copyright. Might have to adapt some of Michelle's work. So that is, so that's part of the reason why the publishing is delayed. Like, there's still some copyright challenges, but I do think hopefully the new chapter, it's got a few more interactive activities. So hopefully it helps, helps get that copyright message through. Nicole, did you want to go?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. That I guess that one of the challenges that we faced was because in the first round they sort of, for one way to describe it is that student projects were kind of picked and choosed by the academics, and I was a bit wary about that because if there was any backlash of why didn't you include mine but you included theirs type thing. So I made sure that there was a pretty solid process around that the onus was put back on the students to participate. We didn't have a lot of influence over who put their hands up. And for both of them, because it's a similar process used for burning issues in the classics, there are always more students who actually got the marks than actually put an expression of interest in. So there was a few that weren't too brave to start with, but those who were brave were actually rewarded for their efforts. The other challenge is that, and there's no way you can get around this, is that you need to wait because of the nature of the assessment task. It's due at the end of semester. So the timeframes around publishing cannot be short-sheeted or changed or tweaked or whatever. It's always going to run into second semester. It's always going to run beyond the end of semester, because by the time they submit their assessment, they get their feedback, and then you start to go through the peer review and et cetera from there. It's just going to blow out. So there's no easy way to fix that particular challenge. Students need to know the content before they can actually develop something, and you can't magically give them all that content, inject them in the first 4 weeks, and they can produce something magical by week 5 that you can then use. You've just got to wait. So, and that's not a challenge. I can't see how you can get around that. There's no easy way to do it.
Thanks, Nicole and Claire. Michelle, there's a couple of questions for you. Do you think having the resource embedded in the LMS is more useful than as a broader resource where it potentially has more reach?
Yeah, it's funny because I often lean towards that being a better option, is having it somewhere publicly accessible. But the feedback from academics, tutors, and the students is no. They want it in the LMS. That's the best place to go. They won't look anywhere else. If it's not there directly in front of them at the point at which they need it and given directly to them in that way, then they're likely not going to use it. And they really, really wanted it there in the LMS.
They want. This is another one for you, Michelle. You mentioned that you uploaded the RISE SCORM package to the LMS. Are there ways to track or assess learner progress effectively using RISE within LMS?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So there's two ways. So if you upload the SCORM package, if you've ever heard of that, yes, you can have a lot more data on usage through the LMS directly. The problem with that is that every time you make an update, you have to re-export and re-upload into the LMS. So for every single unit, every time you do an update, you have to go through and put the SCORM package back in, which is something that I was trying to avoid, having that consistent update issue. So instead of putting the SCORM package in, I sacrificed getting usage data, and we linked out to the resource instead, so they can access it from the LMS, but when they click on it, it opens in a new window, and therefore we don't get that same usage data as you would with a SCORM package. So it would be good if you were only using it in a handful of places, but the wider reach in multiple units means that I had to pick and choose.
Thanks, Michelle. We've got one final question for Angela and Oscar. Do you feel that experience over time on the desk has shaped how you interact with users?
Yes.
Yes is the short answer.
Very.
I think every interaction you have with someone, you learn something from it. And there's always that thought of, oh, I could have let them know about this, or I didn't ask a question about that. So you're constantly sort of refining the way that you interact with people. And, hearing Michelle talk earlier today, there are a lot of things about, active listening, not always rushing in with that response. And I'm like, yeah, that's a fantastic reminder, because there is that desire sometimes, and sometimes it's the desire of the student too. They just want their answer and they want to go away. And you've kind of got to balance that out with, what they might actually need that they're not asking for, I suppose, as well. Do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, like echoing exactly what you said, and sometimes you get a trend in similar questions, and that's always something to sort of think about. Like why are we all getting sort of similar questions, and something to investigate, and then it's something that we all can build on, and then try and provide that, I guess, targeted support for future interactions.
Thank you both, and thanks everyone for your questions, and to you all for answering them so well. If there are further questions, you can email them through and we'll give you the details at the end, and we can pass those on to the speakers. But now I'm going to hand over to my seminar colleague, Ines Sincock, who's a liaison librarian at Monash, and she's going to guide us through the cake competition vote, and we're going to announce the winner and wrap up today's event and the seminar series. Ines, over to you.
Thanks, Ange. And now the moment many of you have been waiting for, the cake competition. The committee has been blown away with your creativity, and we're excited to showcase your bakes and find a winner. So Sarah's just shared a slideshow. There'll be one cake per slide, and then the fabled baker's statement on the next slide. We'll give you a chance to read the statements yourself, and then the final slide will have all of the cakes on it and allow you to vote for your favourite. We've got 7 amazing entries, all with unique takes on the information literacy theme. And Ramona has just put the link to the Menti, and we've also got the code there on the slide for you to cast your vote. This is where we need the Jeopardy theme song on. Looks like we might be having issues with the Menti code.
Okay. Not great.
Oh,
So
yes. It's,
yeah.
I think in the chat there's an 8, but it should be a 3.
Sorry, everyone. That was me.
Yes. So if you use the code that's on the slide, that you can see at the top of the slide.
And that is
That doesn't work?
86474936. Let me have a look.
I've learned something different.
We also made these slides literally 2 minutes ago. So that
Yes.
can also be a reason. Okay, no, I mean, I'm logged into Menti, but it's just, yeah, it's not time to vote yet.
Oh yeah, it will be time to vote at the very end.
Yeah.
That's worked for me, clicking over. So hopefully everyone else can get in to vote now.
Yeah, seems to be working.
Close race.
I know, I'm just like, this is like super tense.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
I mean, we've got 58 people in the meeting and we've had 44 votes, and see maybe we can get to 50 and then we'll call a winner.
I reckon it seems to slow down, and I'm not sure if everybody has been able to log on as well.
True. All right, well, perhaps we found the winner then. And that is The Lighthouse by Sarah Charing, with assistance by Sophie Colo and Jane Gilbert from the University of Melbourne. So congratulations to our winners. And a huge thank you to everyone who participated. We'll reach out to the winner after the webinar to arrange the delivery of your prize. And hopefully we can get a pic of you with that. So as we wrap up, I want to thank all our speakers from today and throughout the seminar. It's been an incredible journey of learning, sharing and growing. If you have any more questions for our speakers, feel free to reach out. Just send an email to the members@caval.edu.au email address, and we'll make sure your questions get passed on. I'd also like to give a special thank you to my fellow seminar committee members for their hard work and dedication. To celebrate all of today's wonderful presenters and the 50th anniversary of information literacy, CAVAL has planted native trees through 15 trees, giving back to the environment in honour of all our speakers and, of course, this 50th anniversary milestone. And with that, it's time to say goodbye and see you in another 12 months. It's been a wonderful 3 days celebrating information literacy and reflecting on its vital role in our work. Here's to many more years of empowering people through information. Take care, everyone.